One day, every person in the world disappears, leaving only a girlfriend and boyfriend who are somehow surviving in that place. Gradually, certain things happen to them, causing them to grow very close to each other. If they become more frustrated, then at the beginning of the story, we are shown a couple named Nay and Rally, who had come to Iceland to have a little fun. They had also come there to be alone for a while, to spend some time together and stay away from all the other tensions. We see that Rally was taking photos everywhere. He loved taking photos and had an old camera that belonged to his father, which he always kept with him. After reaching Iceland, the first thing they do is go to a hotel. After resting there for a while, they go out to explore the surrounding area, taking photographs of every place. When they were trying to capture the water, they learn about a geothermal pool that provided electricity to the area they were staying in. They decide to visit the pool to take a bath. During that time, we see that Rally had spent all his savings on this trip. Nay was not pleased with this, but because Rally did all of this to make her happy, she didn't pay much attention to it and spent more time enjoying herself with Rally. During this time, Rally took many photos of Nay with his old camera, intending to pass them on to her in the future. The next day, they visit a church where the priest tells them about the church's history. After listening, Rally remarks that perhaps life was simpler before Christianization. Nay agrees, and we learn from their conversation that both had strong faith in God and Christianity. Nay's father was actually a religious preacher, but for some reason, Nay did not like talking to her parents. They lived near a waterfall and decided to visit it. Afterward, Nay was feeling very good and enjoyed her time there. Later, they returned to their hotel to rest. At night, the world outside shines brightly, and Nay becomes very happy looking out the window because the sky was beautiful. Suddenly, Nay falls asleep and wakes up the next day lying in bed. It was strange, but Nay doesn't pay much attention to it. Rally also wakes up, talks to her, and asks her to prepare breakfast. When they go down to get the ingredients, they find no other person present. They are confused and decide to go out and eat at a cafe. But even after going out, they don't see a single person in the city. Even when they visit the mall or a cafe, there was no staff present. Rally thinks that because of a holiday in the city, no one has come out of their homes. But when he checks nearby houses, no one is there either. Now, both are unable to understand anything, and fear starts to take over their minds. They try calling their personal contacts, but no one answers. Both become very scared and nervous. Nay worries for her parents, whom she loves very much despite not speaking to them often. They go to the city, shouting here and there, hoping that if anyone else is left in the city, they will come to them. But this is of no use, as they find no one else in the city. They go to a television shop and start watching all the channels, but there is no news or sign of any other people. They become more confused. If a virus had spread in the city, there would have been dead bodies, or if aliens had invaded, there would have been ships. But since nothing like that was present, they couldn't understand where everyone had gone. They return to their hotel, where they see no internet connection. This makes Nay panic even more, as she wanted to contact her parents at any cost. But when she tries calling them, no one answers. Worried, Rally and Nay decide to leave the city. They find a vehicle in working condition and drive straight to the church. But even there, they find no one. They start to believe that perhaps God has left them alive for a purpose, and that they were chosen to repopulate the world. However, Nay becomes very upset by all of this. They go to another nearby city, but find no one there either, making Nay even more worried. They decide to stay at a nearby hotel. Nay's mood remains off, and she doesn't feel like talking to anyone. The next morning, when Rally wakes her up to make breakfast, she doesn't talk to him and stays in bed. Rally tries to cheer her up by taking her to a nearby store, where they do a lot of shopping and begin living in a house of their choice. A few days pass like this, and they enjoy their time there. During this time, Rally tries his best not to let Nay's mood worsen, but we see that Nay's mood keeps breaking down completely for some reason. Rally manages everything, But one day he learns that the equipment of the geothermal pool providing electricity to the city could break down at any time. And since no one else is there to maintain it, this is likely going to happen soon. After learning this, Raleigh gets a little worried because he needs to find a way to keep producing electricity with the geothermal pool. However, since there is still some time left before this happens, Raleigh doesn't focus much on it and continues taking Nay to different places to cheer her up. During this time, Raleigh takes a lot of photos of Nay with his old camera. Nay also feels good and enjoys herself, but since Raleigh is always busy taking photos, she couldn't enjoy it as much. One day, when they had nothing else to do, they go to the nearby supermarket to have fun, during which Nay was punching things around while Raleigh was skating with the help of a shopping cart. But then the shopping cart slips. He meets with an accident and gets a slight injury on his hand, which makes Genai very scared. However, Raleigh reassures her that the injury is not serious. Since then, Genai's mood deteriorates. To cheer her up, Raleigh suggests having a candlelight dinner, to which Genai agrees. That night, they prepare and sit down together for the dinner. But it becomes clear that the visions from earlier in the day are still haunting Genai. She worries because Raleigh is the only person she can talk to now, and if something happens to him, she will be completely alone. Raleigh, understanding her concern, asks her not to worry and to focus on enjoying the dinner. Despite his efforts, Genai's mood worsens, and she abruptly leaves the dinner and retreats to their home, unsure of what to do. Genai spends a long time lying in the house, and during that time, Raleigh keeps trying to improve her mood. Genai wanted the diary back from Raleigh, which her father had given to her in childhood. She used to write all her memories in it. However, Raleigh refuses to return the diary, fearing that writing about their current situation would only deepen her depression. Genai understands and tries to stay as normal as possible, but her anger starts flaring up over small things. She also feels frustrated with Raleigh's lack of concern about the future, as he remains carefree, which worsens her mood. In her anger, she leaves alone for the church, where she begins talking to the statues, trying to understand why all this has happened to her. These thoughts continue to worry her, and Raleigh, noticing how distressed she has become, tries even harder to keep her happy. Raleigh takes Genai to various places, including a plane crash site, thinking she would find it interesting. However, Genai becomes very angry, as it reminds her of those who disappeared, including her parents. She storms off in anger, leaving Raleigh alone. During their separation, Raleigh explores the city, taking photos of anything interesting, but eventually, he becomes frustrated and starts crying. Realizing the futility of taking pictures that he cannot develop, he removes all the reels from his camera, only to regret it later. He picks them up again and goes to a hardware shop, where he gets the idea to generate electricity using the geothermal pool. Raleigh gathers the necessary equipment and heads back home. However, while in the elevator, it suddenly stops, instilling a deep fear in him. He realizes that if he were to get stuck, there would be no one to save him. Nevertheless, he continues working on his device to generate electricity. Meanwhile, Genai goes to a nearby cinema hall, cries bitterly, and later explores the surrounding areas. She comes across a farm with horses, and she rides one for a while, but soon feels lonely again. Sitting in the car, she listens to old voice notes and recordings from her relatives and friends. Hearing these recordings makes her miss Raleigh even more, so she decides to go to the glacier, a place they both loved. There, she finds Raleigh taking photos, and she apologizes to him. During that time, they both decide that no matter what happens, they will not leave each other. They resolve to find a way to bring everyone back or improve their lives. Returning to the city, Raleigh gets busy with his work, and Genai starts exploring the city on her own. She discovers a studio where they could develop Raleigh's photos and a flower shop, but as she enters the shop, her face falls. The flowers inside are rotting, a sign that everything in the world is decaying. This deeply worries Genai, and she returns home silently. Raleigh, noticing her bad mood, takes her camping to cheer her up. They find a house during their camping trip and decide to explore it. Suddenly, they sense someone outside, and when they go out, they find an old man named Neil standing there. The house belonged to Neil, who had gone out hunting to get some food for himself. But because he was very old and had been hungry for a long time, he could not hunt. After knowing this, Rayleigh and Genai gave the food they had to Neil, who was ready to eat. Neil felt very good after this, as he had a full meal after a long time. He gave permission to Rayleigh and Genai to stay in his house. All three of them were talking that night about how suddenly everyone had disappeared, but none of them had an answer, so they went to sleep. However, Genai could not sleep that night, so she went to Neil and started talking to him because Neil was the only one awake. From Neil's words, we learned that he was very sad because he did not even get to say goodbye to his family for the last time. He was a fisherman who, in the greed of earning more money, had left his wife and children in the village and gone to the city. Because he was mostly busy with work, he was not able to contact his wife and children. When he returned, he found out that his wife had fallen in love with someone else, and his children had grown up and did not remember him at all. He realized that nothing is greater than family, so he started living with them. But suddenly one day, he found out that everyone in the world had disappeared, and he was the only one left alive. Neil was very upset and missed his family a lot. Genai became more depressed after hearing all these things. Neil tried to convince her that perhaps she should stay with Rayleigh and not leave him. Genai agreed to this. The next day, when Genai and Rayleigh woke up, they saw that Neil had also died, which made Genai feel very bad. She noticed outside that Neil had planted many grapevines in memory of his family, so they buried Neil's body there so he could rest peacefully. When they returned to the city, Genai mentioned that just as they had seen Neil alive, it was possible that there were many more survivors on Earth who were still alive and had not gone missing. Genai began checking every house in the city to find someone alive. Rayleigh, seeing Genai's obsession, tried to calm her down, but Genai did not listen and angrily drove him away. Rayleigh then went back to his device and completed it, ensuring that they would not lack electricity or water. The next day, Genai's condition worsened, and she became desperate to go to a place where other people were present. She was deeply depressed due to Neil's death and missed her parents a lot. Seeing Genai so upset, Rayleigh tried to improve her mood again. He took her to a waterfall, where he somehow convinced her that they would have to move forward and live with each other. Genai struggled to accept this, but the next day, when Rayleigh woke up, he found that Genai was gone. On the table, he found an envelope with a location written on it. Inside the envelope were many photos of Genai, taken with Rayleigh's own camera. Genai had copied these photos from the studio she had seen the night before and left them with Rayleigh as a memory. Rayleigh realized that Genai was planning to commit suicide at the location where her parents used to live. Knowing that her parents were not alive, Rayleigh understood that Genai wanted to join them. He became worried and started searching everywhere they had visited, but he couldn't find her. The only place left to check was the geothermal bridge, where Genai's car was parked. By the time Rayleigh reached the geothermal pool, it was too late. Genai had already jumped into the pool, and her body was floating on the water. Rayleigh, devastated, tried to retrieve her body. He had become very lonely and didn't know what to do. In his despair, he decided to end his own life, but when he tried to do so, he couldn't go through with it and immediately surfaced from the water. His mind was very disturbed, but he managed to get to his car and started driving recklessly. He had tried his best to keep Genai happy and improve her mood, but she had left him feeling empty and alone. Despite everything that had happened, Rayleigh decided that he would not die by suicide and would survive no matter what. He drove his car forward in frustration, and with this, the movie ends. So, I hope you liked the explanation. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notification for all updates, and like the video. I will keep bringing more interesting explanation videos. Tada, and goodbye until then.